I'm pleased to have with us on the show today Dr. Gabriel Swenson, who is a professor of biology at Payne College down in Augusta, Georgia. Gabe, thank you so much for being with us.
Hi, Rachel. Thank you for having me.
Sure. Today we're talking about Laudato Si, which is the encyclical that just came out from the Holy Father, talking about the environment. One big thing that the encyclical discusses is caring for people who are impoverished in third world countries and how they suffer from consumerism. Can you explain, what we're talking about here?
Part of what really resonates with me coming from Pope Francis's encyclical is the impact of climate change on the poor. The data clearly indicates that it's primarily developed countries that are emitting most of the greenhouse gases that contribute to climate change, and it's primarily the underdeveloped or developing countries that are experiencing the difficulties associated with climate change. This deals with drought, disease, heat, lack of water, lack of electricity, etc.
Okay.
With regards to consumerism, I think it's important to be mindful of the amount of quickly consumable items that we have ready access to here in the States and in other developed countries, and who's making those items. It's generally the impoverished, and they're being paid very low wages to make those quick consumables that we have access to.
Okay, so it's definitely a global issue that, that we're drawing attention to. What are some realistic ways that we can be environmentally conscious? Just things that we can do to be aware of this situation and to make some kind of change.
From my experience, which is based primarily on college campuses and universities, I've seen the greatest amount of success with colleges and universities working with nonprofit organizations in an effort to really track what kind of contributions these entities are making in terms of their carbon footprint. And this deals with inviting these nonprofit organizations such as Second Nature and the Kresge Foundation to these campuses to really keep track of the utilities and the electrical expenditures that ultimately influence the amount of greenhouse gases that these institutions are putting into the environment. In addition to budgeting some of these carbon footprints, creates a culture of sustainability on some of these campuses for students who may have previously not really even considered the impact that very small activities can have on this global concern.
Very good. So I know we've got companies doing things, at a bigger level, and what, we need to do things at a personal level. Like, I happen to know that you were raised with the awareness of being a steward of the earth. What does that mean to you, to be a steward?
Obviously, you need to be a good steward of the environment. You need to work hard to take care of your surroundings. But in my personal opinion, the way that this works with me is just to try to be mindful of what it is you're consuming, to be mindful of the waste that you're generating, to be mindful of the energy, both electrical, mechanical, and human energy that goes into making the things that you're relying on, making the things that you're consuming, and to try to sustain a culture of mindfulness within your homes, with your families, and in your communities. And so that's the way that I see being a good steward of the environment, and part of the way that I think that we can be most effective in terms of managing that stewardship.
Very good. It's just having an awareness. Briefly, can you tell me of any studies going on that are important for us to be aware of, just so that we're informed of things that people are looking at about the environment?
Well, so my training, my background is in environmental microbiology, microbial ecology. So most of my research deals with the impact of rainfall events in mobilizing aquatic pathogens capable of causing disease and infection in the human host. And my research has shown that these episodic rainfall events do mobilize increased concentrations of these pathogens and gives these pathogens a greater capability of causing infection. And this has primarily been dealing with diarrheal disease. And so there are a number of waterborne diseases such as cholera, which have been closely tied to these rainfall events. This is important because as we talk about climate change, the data suggests that there will be an increase in the frequency and intensity of rainfall events. And when these rainfall events are mobilizing these pathogens, it could result in very large-scale problems Additionally, we're starting to see increases in the frequency and distribution of vector-borne or insect-borne diseases as a result of reduced freezing during what historically have been colder months. And so we're seeing diseases such as malaria, in terms of their lateral distribution, is increasing. And so this is quite a concern. And fortunately, there are a number of ongoing studies looking at the impacts of climate change on some of the spread of this disease.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, so there's a lot of thought going into this, and I just think it's important for us, and especially now that the Holy Father is drawing our attention to this, to just be aware that, you know, scientists are thinking about this. We need to be considering our impact on the earth. You know, unfortunately, I think some people do have an attitude that being environmentally conscious is somehow not for everybody. What do you say to that?
I agree. I think it's very unfortunate that this topic has become so politicized here in the States to such an extent that people may not want to espouse environmental sustainability or environmental consciousness because they don't want to be associated with, you know, the other party. And while it's unfortunate that it occurs in the States, it also occurs, this kind of politicalization occurs on an international level too, which has created some real challenges in terms of various countries trying to work together to resolve what is a growing concern for all of us regardless of our political affiliations. And I also think that this is one of the real strengths of Pope Francis's encyclical, is that I think, in my opinion, it aims to depoliticize what is, again, a growing concern for all of us.
Very good. Okay, tell me real quick, what are 3 tips for reducing waste and consumption at home?
In my mind, of course, recycle, cut down on water usage, and cut down on plastic usage.
All right.
All of those are will aid in sustainability.
What about, so water usage, how do I cut down on that? You're not telling me to drink less water, right?
Drink plenty of water, but don't take a 30-minute shower. Turn the water off when you're brushing your teeth.
Should I buy less should I buy less at the store? What can I do about that?
I would buy less. Personally, in my home, we're trying to buy less of the quickly disposable plastics like water bottles, sports drinks bottles. You know, find a way to either reuse those bottles or avoid purchasing them altogether.
Very good. Dr. Swenson, thank you so much for being with us today and inspiring us to think past what we think we need to know about environmentally conscious issues. I really appreciate you talking with us.
It was a pleasure, Rachel. Thank you for having me.
Take care.